helping students and healthcare professionals not just survive, but thrive with a purpose. This is the CMDA Student Pulse podcast with your host, Bill Reichart, National Director of CMDA Campus Ministries.
Well, welcome to another episode of CMDA Student Pulse podcast. I'm Bill Reichart, National Director for Campus and Community Ministries here at CMDA. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Monika Potocki. Dr. Potocki graduated from Georgetown University School of Medicine, completed her OB-GYN residency at Newark Beth Israel Medical Center, and is currently studying Naprotechnology in Omaha, Nebraska. And I had to look that up. Naprotechnology wasn't familiar to me. Monika, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
I thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Now, what we're going to be talking about is something called Conscience in Residency, and I don't want to bury the lead. Let's just talk right up front. What is this ministry, Conscience in Residency?
Okay, so Conscience in Residency is a nonprofit organization. We are not affiliated actually with any religion, or we are actually a non-religious organization, but our purpose is to counsel and mentor medical students and residents who have any sort of ethical objections in the practice of medicine. So we do tend to serve a lot of people who have problems with, for instance, abortion or birth control. And we basically say, this should not stop you from applying to the specialty of your choice. So if you want to be an OBGYN, you can still do that. We have methods that you can use to avoid those things while you train and then when you practice as an attending. And that's basically our goal, is to encourage people to go after the specialty of their choice and to tell them how they can do that in the way that they want to do it and not what the mainstream would say that you should be doing as that doctor.
Okay, so I think this is going to be very relevant to many of our listeners as they consider their specialty and they consider some of the ethical landmines they're going to face, the challenges in the residency interviews, the things that they're going to be asked to do or they feel like they're going to be put upon to do. But you've become involved in this, I assume, Monika, because, I mean, OBGYN obviously fraught with a lot of moral and ethical challenges in that specialty these days. Probably you had these very same issues as you were considering your specialty. Tell us a little bit about your journey. I mean, I assume you were a recipient of the kind of coaching and help that Conscience Residency offered. Is that right?
That's totally correct. I consider myself a Conscience in Residency success story.
Okay.
I've always been fascinated I love pregnancy from when I was a little child. I was always fascinated by it. In high school, I used to read birth stories. That was my go-to thing to do when I had some free time. And I really went into medical school thinking that I really loved obstetrics and gynecology. But second year of med school, particularly third year of med school, I started realizing how difficult it would be. So a little backstory about me. I am a Catholic. Catholics, among other things, cannot participate in abortion, birth control, and in vitro fertilization, or many other artificial reproductive technologies. And I started to get really, really nervous that this is not going to work out for me. And so I tried so hard, third year of medical school, to fall in love with any other specialty other than OBGYN. And it was a fail. I hated everything except OB. And I found Dr. Kara Buskmiller, and I can't remember exactly how I found her or how I found Conscience in Residency. Perhaps it was just a Google search. Perhaps someone told me about her. But I ended up talking to her over the phone. And that's basically what Conscience in Residency does. It takes a mentor who has already gone through that path, in this case, Kara, and links her up with a medical student like me or a resident. And we just have a conversation, and she told me how she had managed to do it. She told me the tips and tricks that she had used during her residency interviews. She told me how she was avoiding things in residency that she didn't want to do. I mean, and she told me how to avoid, doing abortions, how to work it out with your colleagues, that they would be willing to fulfill birth control prescriptions for you. And I just remember leaving that conversation feeling for the very first time like I didn't have some crazy dream that was unrealistic. I felt like this is something that has been done before. I can do this, and this is possible. And that just that knowledge, first of all, helped me go forward and face my medical school and say, I want to do this. I know this is not the typical thing that's done, but other people have done this. I have spoken to them. This isn't me being crazy and weird. This is a possibility, and I want to pursue this, even though it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world.
So Kara comes alongside you as a coach, a mentor. This is long distance. You're having, I assume, just conversations as needed. There's it's not a one and done, but I imagine it's an ongoing kind of relationship you all are having. And were there some discussions about looking at residency programs as well that were friendly to someone of faith? Was that also in the equation as well? Were you looking at residency programs that would be friendly to your faith and to your conscience?
Absolutely. So that was obviously my biggest concern, how to find those residency programs. So she basically told me what to look for in the interview. Since the time I went through it, however, Conscience Residency has had it might have already been around a little bit when I was applying, but we definitely have updated it. We now have a list on our website of programs which are friendly to people who don't want to prescribe birth control or do abortions. And that's updated. We try to update it yearly, so it's very up to date. So basically, it's all the programs, all the OBGYN programs in the country, and then comments from applicants who actually interviewed there. So that's very, very helpful.
That is.
I think I did have that list when I was applying. It was much, however, shorter and with much less comments. So that's been expanding as we've had more and more people go through this route. Yeah.
Well, I think that's great. I know CMDA has a little bit of that as well, and then I think APLOG has maybe a list. They've curated a list of Christian faith-friendly programs that won't potentially cause an individual to violate their conscience. So I think those lists are helpful. I think they're great, but you're still you're interviewing. You still have to go through that process. What were some of the tips, the things that Kara coached you on that was going to help you, one, get a better idea of this program that you were interviewing for, as well as for them to understand who you were, that these issues of conscience were important to you?
So some of the most helpful tips were to try to interview first and foremost as a normal candidate, not to make this ethical objection that we had the focus of our career. So to go into the interview saying, look, I'm someone who loves this field, someone who's really willing to work very, very hard, someone who's going to be a great team player for in your residency program. I'm going to be your dream resident. But there's just a few things about me that you should know, and these are the things. And then just to present it very honestly and openly. And mostly, we also tell people to mostly do it to the program director. So when you're interviewing, every person doesn't need to know about it. So you don't have to tell every resident you interview with, every professor. I mean, for those people, just tell them, I am someone who really, really wants to be in this field, and I will work hard. And then just about your background or wherever the conversation goes from there. However, we do recommend that you do tell the program director because it's just fair, first of all. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where they're not going to be able to accommodate you. And at the same time, they should know what they're getting into. And it's just going to go a lot more smoothly if that's on the table.
Yeah.
So most programs will have an interview with the program director. If not, then either pick a very good surrogate, like an assistant program director, or someone who would be able to have some power and be able to inform the necessary parties of what your views are. Or you can email the program director afterward. There usually is a way to do that. They usually give you an email. So to let them know before you start matching.
Stay with us. More Student Pulse podcast in just a moment.
our greatest act of love that we can display is always going to be towards people who don't look like you. I think we have a great responsibility through the gift of healing, the gift of God, to try to foster relationships from a patient level, from a staff level. Diversity will bring different groups of people around you who may not look like you and think like you and talk like you. But cross-cultural dependency will add another layer, a layer that says that I give authority to other people who don't look and think like me to speak into my life. And I'm relying on them, understanding that I have blind spots, that I'm limited in the way that I can see and do life, whereas they may have seen a perspective that I don't know.
Monika, I was going to ask you, would you say, though, okay, you do all that prep work, you put it on the table, you make your intentions known, who you are. I assume that alleviates a lot of problems once you get into that residency program, but perhaps maybe not always. I mean, even after all of that screening, all of those conversations, you get into a residency program, are there still problems or questions or concerns and challenges a resident may face?
There are, and it depends on how familiar the program is with the situation. Some programs might feel like you didn't give them all the information they needed, and they don't realize exactly how many things you're not going to be participating in. For instance, a lot of people don't understand, like, no, I'm a Catholic and I'm NFP only means I will not be prescribing birth control. And they suddenly, when you match, they're like, wait a minute, how is this going to work? So there are times that you have to refine that, and you'll probably meet with your program director and work on particular strategies of how that's going to happen in that particular residency program. I personally have never heard of anyone getting fired after they've matched. Okay. So that's a good sign. And again, Conscious in Residency can talk with that person and give them more strategies of how to deal with certain situations. And many times programs realize, I know it sounds like at the beginning, it might sound to them like this is a huge undertaking, but as time goes on, they realize it's not that big of a deal. Residents do cover for each other a lot, just because someone's sick, someone had to go to clinic unexpectedly. So if people are understanding and willing to help, it usually does not end up being as huge of a deal on a daily basis as people would think. But that does not mean that there have been people, unfortunately, who've had tough times and and they've been very brave in facing those. Well,
and we've been focusing on historically so much so on those specialties like OB-GYN because of the life issue, abortion, and so forth. This issue is becoming greater than that with now transgender medicine, and that's affecting just about every specialty gets touched on that issue. So these questions aren't just going to be for any one particular specialty or two. It's really affecting all throughout medicine. So I think everyone is going to benefit from these kind of conversations no matter what specialty they're going in, because these issues are going to, whether they be the right to life issues, the abortion, transgender medicine, it's going to touch just about everybody.
I completely agree. I recently heard an orthopedist speak, and orthopedics is usually a specialty where you would never have any, who knows, but usually people do not have ethical issues there. But he's like, well, now people will be coming to me and asking to change the shape of their hips. And all of a sudden, I'm on the front lines of this. And so I think that I think conscious in residency is very, very important, but it's becoming more and more important because you're right. It used to be, well, you have issues with certain things, just don't go into one or two specialties and you'll be totally fine. Not anymore. And you mentioned transgender surgeries. There's also euthanasia, which is on the horizon already there in many states. And almost every specialty will be asked to weigh in on euthanasia because a cardiologist, someone in the cardiology field might be asked to turn off a pacemaker so someone can die.
Wow.
Or you never know how that's going to go. So a nephrologist might be asked to give their final opinion on whether these kidneys can ever recover, or should we just let the person go? You never know. So don't think that, I'm going to go into this or that specialty and just hide from this problem. And unless you're someone who just rolls with every single punch without any sort of ethical dilemmas whatsoever, generally you're probably going to come to a point where you're going to say, hey, I probably am not comfortable with this or that, and how do I not participate?
No, I think that's a great point, Monika. There's nowhere to hide, that's for sure. And we're going to be asked and called upon to make ourselves known in so many ways. And I think what you're showing, though, is it can be done in a very professional, effective way, clear way. Again, I think the coaching of individuals like Kara, and now you, I should say, too, because the idea here is that you've gone through this, you've benefited from conscience in residency. You've gone through this process yourself. Now you're paying it forward in so many ways. You are coaching other students. That's correct, right?
Yes, it's correct. And we have a network of mentors that we will link people up with. So it's not just me and Kara. We have other people we know of that we can reach out to. And if their schedule allows, we can link them up with a medical student and have that medical student or that resident have a good conversation with someone who hopefully is in the same specialty as them. We're trying to expand our network of mentors among all specialties. Honestly, we're not there yet, but we are working on it. And at the very least, we have some strategies that we can build on from other specialties. So,
right.
We're gonna hopefully get to the point very soon where we can cover every specialty.
Well, that's ambitious, but necessary, of course. As we just discussed, this is affecting everyone. Those who can be mentors, though, I think it's important to understand now. You're in fellowship now, right?
I am.
So those who are to be the mentors, they want to still be in the residency fellowship space because there's a sense of proximity to having just gone through those interviews yourself. You understand the process. Once you become an attending, once you've graduated, then you kind of graduate out, don't you? To be able to mentor, am I correct in assuming then that ends?
We don't have a hard and fast rule, but we do try to keep it to younger attendings, recently graduated attendings. And most of the mentors are residents or fellows, honestly, right now. Okay. And that's how we'd like to keep it because, things change over 15 years and we'll see what happens. But overall, we do try to keep it to people who recently graduated. So I just recently graduated residency in June. So I'm very close to this and I know exactly what's going on at this point. In 10 years, that probably won't be accurate anymore. All right. So, So I'll probably graduate out by that point, but we don't have a hard and fast rule that you can only be a mentor if you've only been out for like 5 years or something. But in practice, the people who are interested in this are the current residents, and that's who we like to, be able to link up with the medical students or the residents seeking help.
Fantastic, because that's, those who may be listening, this is a podcast targeted for students, but we have listeners all across the spectrum. People are going to be listening in, and they may think, hey, how can I be a mentor? So, you just heard Monika describe, that window of time, if you are a resident, a fellow, or recently graduate, a young attending, then this would be something that you might want to consider, I think, to become part of conscious residency, helping younger the students as they're going through this process of residency, navigating these ethical challenges, issues. I think this would be a great way to serve. And given your ambitious goals of really wanting to expand and have this kind of outreach, I think you're going to need all hands on deck.
Stay with us. More Student Pulse podcast in just a moment. To learn more about CMDA, download our CMDA Student Life app, available for Android and iPhone. The app will give you access to CMDA events, tools, Bible studies, and a wealth of other resources. Also, joining CMDA can be done on the app, and it only takes about 3 minutes to complete. As a student, CMDA will underwrite your membership so that you can join the community at no cost. Download the app today.
So as a Christian healthcare professional, I've been blessed to be able to be both in the School of Medicine and also the School of Pharmacy, and it doesn't matter whether you're a dentist, a doctor, a pharmacist, a physical therapist, a nurse practitioner, a physician assistant. All Christian healthcare practitioners face the same challenges. That might be burnout, or it might be dealing with difficult ethical issues as a practitioner. It might be wanting to know how you can practice and keep faith as a part of your practice and help others treat the whole person. Regardless of those situations, CMDA is there to really help provide resources to equip you with what you need in order to really live your fullest Christian healthcare practitioner life. CMDA is there to encourage you. There isn't another network of Christian healthcare practitioners who is more focused on being there for you, to encourage you, to help you deal with tough and challenging situations such as malpractice lawsuits, help you deal with burnout, or to even just be there for prayer when you're trying to make those big decisions as a practitioner in life. That's what's so pivotal about being a CMDA member.
So let's talk about the flip side, though. A student. When do you think is best for a student to reach out to you all? I mean, at one point in their training career, third year, should they start reaching out? Is that?
I think you should start reaching out second or third year.
Okay.
Whenever you start feeling like you are going to go into, once you figure out what specialty you want to go to, honestly, because that can help our coaching. I mean, you can reach out anytime. Like I would be happy to hear from like high school students if they just want to be, very, very proactive. But I think we'd be most efficient and most effective once you know what specialty you're going to, because sometimes we can really help you because we know what is expected from, usually we know what's expected from that specialty. So for instance, when I was applying to OBGYN residency, I was under the impression that not to do sterilizations or tubal ligations would be a huge deal. But once Kara knew that I was applying to that, she's like, no, you don't understand. Like there is no unlike hysterectomies, unlike DNCs, there is no number of tubal ligations that they count. You can meet your numbers without ever touching a tubal ligation. And so it's easier for us to counsel if we know what specialty you're going into. But if you also just want to talk about it, like a lot of people who reach out are on the fence. They're like, well, I really love OBGYN, but I'm really worried. So I'm thinking about that versus internal medicine. And we can, that's a good time. We can give you an idea about what to expect in OBGYN residency with the sort of ethical dilemmas that you are facing. And that helps people decide whether or not they want to go down that path, because we feel that nobody should have to pick a specialty based on what their ethical beliefs are or their religious beliefs are. They should pick it because they love it, and they should be able to work out any other problems as they come up in if we are a fair society and a fair, and if medical training is really fair and for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a great ministry, and it is all volunteers. I mean, you guys, this is Grassroots. You all are putting blood, sweat, and tears, your own energy, your own time, which I know as a fellow does not come around easy. There's not a lot of time to go around. So the fact that you're investing in others in this way, that's why I think it's going to be real important that you are able to have others join you in this and to be a part of this. Obviously, those who have benefited from CIR are going to be some of the best mentors and coaches because they've been on the receiving end of it. But I think anybody who hears this conversation who says this would be something I could do, I could make a meaningful contribution for my faith to another young man and woman's their journey as they're thinking about their specialty and how to do it in an effective way. I think this is it's a great work. And in fact, I almost see I'm not trying to tell you all what to do in terms of your mission, but this issue is becoming very prevalent a little bit differently, yet still an issue for undergraduate students applying for medical school. They're facing challenges. Those who are Christ followers, navigating the interview processes there as well, and in terms of their own faith. It's becoming a challenge all across the spectrum, whether it be issues of moral or ethical challenges, or just issues of being just identifying as a Christian. I think is going to be challenging and continue to be. But I like what you're doing. I think you all are doing something very needful and very important, because we want more Christians in these specialties. The last thing we want are folks like yourself, Monika, who would have abdicated the opportunity to be in a specialty like you are in. It's just so important to have your voice, your convictions, and your faith there. So, as you're talking to this audience, anything you want to say to those who may be listening in terms of call to action, next steps, things that maybe we just didn't touch on or discuss?
Pretty much, I think we discussed everything I wanted to discuss. I think that we did a great job. If anyone is interested in reaching out to us, please go to our website, conscienceandresidency.com. Mm-hmm. You will find our email there, and that is the best way to connect with a mentor. You can sign up for a newsletter. We do send out sometimes job opportunities for people who have graduated residency and have conscientious objections. So that's always nice, even if you're a student or a resident, to get those, because you're like, see, there is a place for me out there once I finish this long path. But if you actually have a very pressing ethical issue, we recommend that you email us because that's what we check very frequently. Okay. And that's how we're going to actually hook you up with a mentor. You can, overall, Conscience and Residency is whatever you want it to be for you. So I and Kara have a very long, now I think like 6-year relationship that started from that one phone call. And I just have asked her questions, texted her about ethical issues when I was like on call and needed a friend or someone to run things past. But if you just want like a one and done situation, you just want to have a few questions answered and you don't feel like you need to reach out to us again, that's totally fine. We're not offended. But if you do want that long relationship and a long lasting mentor, then you can also have that. So don't feel like, oh, I just have like 2 questions, I'm not going to bother them for that. Whatever you need, please email us for it. We will be more than happy to talk to you, work things out, give you ideas, and hopefully give you some good practical advice about how to ask your fellow residents for coverage and finish the specialty of your dreams with your conscience and your ethical and not walking into any ethical landmines. So. Yeah,
well, fantastic, Monika. I'm just so grateful you and Kara are making this investment, and you're so generous with your time and energy. Again, I think this is just such a needful work in a time such as this, and I pray that, according to your challenge, that students would take you up on this, even if it's a one and done, or if it's an ongoing kind of coaching opportunity, that they would seek you all out and be able to get what they need so that they can effectively advance into those specialties that are going to, like you say, be ethical and moral challenges, but can be navigated well. And oftentimes it just, again, takes somebody like yourself who are coming alongside them, helping answer those questions, kind of removing some of the misconceptions. I think a lot of it has to do with misconceptions. We imagine it's going to be like this, or we imagine they're going to be asking us to do this, when in fact it may not be quite as we imagine it. And of course, with you and your experience, you can speak not just theoretically, but you speak from practical experience. And I think that's the key in this ministry, is is having that experience and being able to speak with that. Again, Monika, thank you so much for the time. We're going to put the website in the show notes so people can reach out to you. I hope many do. And this may not be the last time we speak with you all. I think we may have Kara at some point come on and maybe later on in our podcast cycle and maybe share some more about this conscious residency, because this is a ministry and a work that you're doing that is needful, and I think it's important for our students to avail themselves of it. So thank you again, Monika. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. CMDA's Student Pulse podcast is a production of the Christian Medical and Dental Associations. The opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are not necessarily endorsed by the organization. CMDA is non-partisan and does not endorse political parties or candidates for public office. The views expressed on Student Pulse podcast reflect judgments regarding principles and values held by CMDA and its members.